Dallas Cowboys fans, this is what you've been looking for. A show discussing the team you love without all the fluff and BS. Host Greg Rector, along with Cowboys writers and content creators from across the country, break it down. This isn't the same old, same old. This is the blue and silver breakdown. How about them Cowboys?
Good evening, everybody. This is Great Cowboys, and yes, that name is significant for me because I have been a Dallas Cowboys fan since 1969. Tonight, I'm joined by Jeff Barnes, another lifelong Dallas Cowboys fan, and we're going to do a discussion here about Dallas Cowboys who belong in Canton, Ohio, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Next week, next Saturday, 4 new members get inducted. Jason Witten is not going to be on this show because he's going to be in 2030 in the first round. If that doesn't happen, Cowboys Nation will explode. I mean, explode if he does not get in on the first ballot. But again, the members we're going to talk about tonight, most of you haven't really seen a lot of them. Because most of these guys are pre-Jerry Jones and company's era. They're more my era of players who belong not just in the Ring of Honor in Arlington, but in Canton's Pro Football Hall of Fame. And Mr. Jeff,
sir,
who would you like to start out with?
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room and why these guys aren't in. And we could talk about numbers and stats with all these guys. Some of these guys, sacks weren't even an official stat. But if you go back and go through the film and look at their numbers are up there with a lot of the guys that are in.
Absolutely.
So it's a matter of
one player has 2 different categories because the blocked pass was his forte as well, and that became a stat because of him.
Absolutely. But the star that we love as Cowboy fans, right, comes with a lot of prestige, but there's a lot of doom and gloom that comes along with it, right? You either love the Cowboys or you hate them. There's very few people that don't, feel a certain kind of way about the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
And while as a fan, you may get a lot of flack for being a Cowboy fan, the players get a lot more disrespect than the fans ever will. And the guys we're talking about tonight are guys that should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. We've seen a lot of Cowboys going recently that played in the 70s, in the 60s, that should have been in decades ago. We didn't see a wait for Starbuck. We didn't see a wait for Randy White. We saw a little bit of a wait for Bob Lilly.
Yeah,
but the went in on their first ballots.
Bob Lilly was Mr. Cowboy. I mean, he was the big star of that team, and why he waited is beyond me.
Yeah, and it's a case of the dark side of the opinion of the star affecting these guys. All right. Why would you not have some of the guys in there that we're going to talk about? I wrote a piece about the first guy. We're going to start with the list. And that guy is, of course, Cornell Green.
Yeah.
Okay. I wrote a piece a couple of years ago for Team MBS Media called Missing from the Hall, Cornell Green. And it explained how Cornell Green, a college basketball player, found on campus, and they say, you know what? As a bet, come to camp. I'll pay you $50 if you make the team. Guess what? He made the team and went looking for his $50. Right? Now, you talk about a big 6-foot+ corner, right? Who eventually went on to play safety in a time where black players were not allowed to play safety. They didn't think they were smart enough to play safety. He went on to be an All-Pro at corner and safety. All right. So he was not only an elite athlete, but a pioneer for DBs, especially black DBs. And to not even be considered for the Hall is not only disrespectful, But had he done it with any other franchise, he's in there. And the fact that Herb Adderley's in there, and Herb Adderley's played for more than one franchise, so you expect Herb Adderley will get in there. But you haven't even talked about Cornell Green and what he did, not only in the time period when he played, but what he did on the field. Yep. Cornell Green was an asset to this team and highly, highly not talked about. He's underappreciated by many, many football fans.
Oh, absolutely. The first 8 years of his career, he was a cornerback. He led the team in interceptions 4 times. He was named to 5 Pro Bowls, 4 All-Pro teams. He had the athletic skills from basketball to become a fine defensive back. His only transition was playing a sport where you could tackle someone with the ball, and Cornell never had a problem dealing with that. Those are the words of Tom Landry.
That's correct.
So, again, Green was basically a kid that the Cowboys just found somewhere, right? I mean, that was his whole big thing here.
Well, and it was because of who's the famous Cowboy scout that everybody still talks about to this day?
Gil Brandt.
Gil Brandt was the man that found him on campus. It was Gil Brandt that was watching basketball practice and goes, wow, that's a heck of an athlete. I think he'd be a heck of a football player.
Yep.
And that's how he got found. And he made the bet with him. He goes, you know what? You come to camp and make the team, I'll pay you $50. And he went looking for his $50 when he made the team. You better believe he wasn't going to let Gil Brandt escape, without it. But when I did that piece, I got to talk to Cornell Green, and you're talking to somebody who was a pioneer. Like I said,
absolutely.
He was a guy that that transitions easily from basketball to football, but then goes out there and does what people said couldn't be done. Oh, they can't play. They're not smart enough to play safety. And then he goes out there and plays safety and was phenomenal.
Well, as a safety, the Cowboys went to the 2 consecutive Super Bowls, Super Bowl V, which is still a painful memory for me. And then the 24-3 shellacking we gave to the Miami Dolphins, which, of course, the next season they went on to have the perfect season. But again, that part, he was a big part of the Doomsday defense. This is Doomsday defense number 1 that we're talking about. And Cornell Green, he was just a phenomenal defensive back.
Indeed. And like we said, they didn't make him that big that often back then. You talk about his size, well over 6 foot. But you see the highlights. He's a guy who always was in phase, could do wonders with the ball, right? When he got the ball in his hand. So he wasn't exactly just a guy that just caught the ball and fell down. He would take it to the house.
But even as a safety, when he converted to safety, he was going and hitting the running backs. I mean, and doing his job as a safety.
Absolutely.
Just as well as he was as playing as a corner.
And you see the big size right there, how big he is compared to the wide receiver he's covering.
Yep.
And these aren't mediocre quarterbacks you're facing. These are some of the big time quarterbacks at the time, the Billy Kilmers, the Sonny Jurgensens, all of these guys, were really, really good passers, for the time that they played in.
Yeah.
And I really want to see more respect put on Cornell Green's name, as well as a lot of the guys we're going to talk about tonight. You talk about Doomsday 1 and 2. It's amazing to me that when you talk about the Cowboys and the Steelers, 2 teams that dominated the 70s, right?
Yeah.
The one for the Steelers, the Cowboys would have had more Super Bowls because they went there 5 times, right? The 2 to 3 losses to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Right? The only one that wasn't Pittsburgh was, of course, the Colts, which is, where you have the 2 MVPs of that game were on the losing team, which were the Cowboys, right? Yep. Bob Lilly and, of course, the linebacker just went in, right? Let's talk about that.
Yep.
The linebacker who was a co-MVP, right, with with Bob Lilly in the Super Bowl, with the first Super Bowl that they made, right, which was Super Bowl, 6, wasn't it?
Super Bowl 5.
5. Okay, 5. Super Bowl 5. You just put him in the Hall of Fame a couple of years ago.
Yep. Why? Why was that? Because he wore a star. And let's face the facts. The Dallas Cowboys are the most they're the most watched team in the league year after year after year. It doesn't matter what their record is. They're the most watched team. Fans all over the world understand what the star is. And I'm talking all over this world. I mean, if you don't think that the Australian people don't want the Dallas Cowboys to play the LA Rams next year, I got some news for you, because that's the team that they want to face. You know, but again, Cornell Green was basically a superstar at 2 different backfield positions in the defensive backfield. How many other guys do you know are like that?
Very few.
Very few. Bingo. So, do you want to discuss Jethro Pugh? Because he's another member. He's another member of Doomsday 1 and 2.
Absolutely. And one of those guys we talked about, Lilly's in.
Yep.
How is Jethro Pugh not in? And we talked about it of the 1970s Cowboys.
Yep.
6 are in the Hall of Fame. Only 6.
Only 6.
There were over 10 Steelers.
Yep. And to be fair to the Steelers fans who are out there and watching us, L.C. Greenwood deserves to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well. Why he isn't, I have no idea.
How the Will linebacker made it in before L.C. Greenwood made it in?
L.C. Greenwood made it in.
Yeah, that's confusing, but nevertheless, Jethro Pugh, another unappreciated Dallas Cowboy. Right? We talk about that doomsday defense up front. One of the guys that helped stop the Jim Browns, later on helped slow down the Franco Harrises, was this big man in the middle.
Yep.
Okay. And that's going to be a huge thing we talk about when it comes to big men in doomsday, because all 3 of the guys that we're going to talk about tonight that were in the front of that doomsday defense were big men. Okay. Jethro Pugh, Ice Bowl. You can name all the games that he was in, the Super Bowls that he was in. Always making plays, always around the quarterback, always stopping the run, always around the football.
And Jethro, if you want to talk about a bad missed call by the officials, it was in the Ice Bowl in 1967. Kramer was offside on the play that he blocked Jethro Pugh, so Bart Starr could score that 1-yard touchdown. He was offside, and everybody knows that. But, And
think about the game, that conditions, negative degrees, and he was still able to beat blocks, hit people in the backfield, make plays when you probably couldn't feel your feet and hands. Everything probably hurt when you hit that ground, because I played on frozen grass.
Oh, he suffered frostbite. He suffered frostbite that day.
Yeah. So when you talk about big men that were dominant, the guy that could rush the passer, the guy that could stop the run, the guy that could do it all in that flex defense.
Yeah.
Jethro Pugh was one of the reasons why you put it together. He is as big for the Dallas Cowboys front back then as Bob Lilly was, as Randy White became. So I think when you look at his career, while the numbers weren't gaudy, you look at the play, look at how he elevated that defense, how he made Chuck Howley's life a lot easier. Okay.
Well, in his 13 seasons,
Bob Lilly.
Yep. In his 13 seasons, though, Jethro Pugh, because of once you watch back the film and all that other jazz, was credited with 95.5 sacks in his 13 years.
Bingo.
That's from a DT, kids.
Yes.
That's a DT. That's a 3-tech. That's
what John Randall numbers.
Yep. Bingo.
All right. So
how he is not in the Hall of Fame is beyond me. It is totally beyond me.
You could go down the list, and we could talk about the front four, the Purple People Eaters. We could talk about the front of the Raiders from the 70s. These guys were in 5 Super Bowls for a reason, and a lot of it was because of these guys up front.
Bingo. I mean, because again, as I've mentioned before, when everybody comes after Dak Prescott these days, I don't care what Prescott, the quarterback, does as long as he's efficient in his passing game. That's all you need a quarterback to be. But when you have a defense, the likes of which I got to see personally up front, Doomsday 1 and Doomsday 2, when they put pressure on a quarterback, that opposing quarterback was under the gun the entire game.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about more of these guys. I want to mention a guy who came in. He's to me, he's not a Hall of Famer. But he is a big time Cowboy. I know we just saw Tank Lawrence leave, and a lot of people were talking about his legacy. I know some of the writers, talk about him in high regards. I like Tank Lawrence a lot. I really do. I think what Tank Lawrence did in Dallas was amazing. I think he's going to still do well wherever he landed. I forgot where he went.
Seattle. He's in Seattle.
I think he'll still do well in Seattle. His legacy, to me, he's up there with the Tony Tolberts. Very good pass rushers, right? Not elite, but very good. There was a guy that played before him that was part of those the last set of Super Bowl teams, but he was old on those teams, named Jim Jeffcoat.
Jim Jeffcoat.
No love.
No.
Right? When you talk about what he did, and it's because he played in the 80s when the Cowboys were kind of, still good, but older, and they weren't getting past conference championship games, and they were, the Niners owned the 80s, and then the Redskins won their championships in the 80s, and the Giants won their first in 86, and, they were kind of like forgotten about.
Yep.
But Jeffcoat was a heck of a pass rusher, a heck of a player.
Oh, absolutely. Great.
And he wasn't appreciated until you got to that Super Bowl run when Haley came to town.
Yep. Bingo.
All right. But we talked about, Jethro. You got to talk about the guy that lined up next to him, Harvey Martin. And another guy that people, once again, totally whiff on. How is he still sitting here waiting for a Hall of Fame call? A guy that consistently set the edge against the run, consistently sacked the quarterback. Another big frame, long frame that goes out there, highly athletic, and just unfortunately is not given the respect that he's due when it comes to rushing the passer.
Well, he actually has something that Michael Strahan claims to have, which is the number 1 sack total in a season, because in a 14-game season in 1977, this man put up 23 sacks. 14 games, not a 16-game season like Strahan had.
Yes.
In 14 games, Mr. Martin sacked the quarterback 23 times. Mr. Martin was the co-MVP of that Super Bowl with Randy White. Mr. Martin, in his first 3 seasons, was always out on the field against Rayfield Wright, who was another Hall of Fame member of the Dallas Cowboys offensive line.
Yes.
Rayfield Wright got Harvey Martin to become Mr. Mean because he wasn't. He was a gentle man off the field. Very gentle, very quiet guy. But Rayfield Wright brought out that beast in him. And when that beast hit you, you knew you were going down.
Absolutely. And, you talk about another big 6'4" defensive end with a great get off, right? You talk about him, the ability to beat you inside or outside with speed. He had good speed to power ratio. And he was just a guy that when you talk about the flex defense, it was all about speed. They wanted speed. But these are big guys. They weren't small guys. They were
No.
big guys, right? Harvey Martin, Jethro Pugh, and then later on Randy White. But then you add in another guy that goes along with those guys named Ed Too Tall Jones. And Too Tall was another one of these guys. You talk about 6'7", all right?
6'9". 6'9".
6'9", excuse me. I shorted him 2 inches, 6'9". But the ability to rush the edge with bend at 6'9". We don't see 6'9" defensive ends doing this.
No. And not only was he getting after the quarterback, and yes, his numbers are 106.5 sacks, because again, early in his career they didn't count sacks until 1982. But this man had 106.5 sacks, and his Too Tall name came because he stopped playing basketball at Tennessee State. He wanted to play football, and his pants were too short. The teammates said, "Oh, you're just too tall." That's where the nickname comes from. And he was the first overall draft pick from a historically black college or university.
That's right.
Bingo. He played from 74 to 78. Then he stopped for a couple of seasons.
The box.
He boxed. And I remember watching those fights because the CBS Sports always had him on.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't too bad in the boxing ring either.
Not at all.
But when he came back, oh my goodness.
Yeah, he loved football a little bit more when he came back from boxing.
Yeah. He had the second stint. He became All-Pro and a Pro Bowl 3 times from 81 to 83. He played in 3 Super Bowls. He was part of 3 NFC championship teams. He got the Super Bowl 12 championship. But in 1985, he had a career high of 13 sacks, and he was 34 years old at the time. Despite having a hamstring injury that year, he also had 80 tackles and 13 block passes. And speaking of Jim Jeffcoat, he was the one who batted a pass into the hands of teammate Jim Jeffcoat, whose 65-yard touchdown return changed the momentum for the NFC title game that they played 28-21. They won. Jimmy Johnson, who we both recognize and love as the Cowboys head coach, wanted to bench Too Tall Jones after 198 games.
Yeah.
The fans basically said, "Oh no, you're not. Oh no, you're not," because he wanted to bench him. He let him go out for the 200 career starts, and then he also started the next 3 games. He retired in 1990 at the age of 39. Never missed a game in his 15 seasons. Never missed a game.
I mean, I remember because, you talk about Jeffcoat, you talk about Jones, you talk about the Manster. Those guys were all my time. I came into watching football in 79 when I was really, really young. Immediately saw the Star and was like, wow, that was it, and seeing Dorsett and Staubach and, of course, Drew, but you saw that doomsday defense, right? And it was, of course, Landry with the hat, but my sisters used to watch Dallas, so I used to watch the intro just to see Texas Stadium. Just to see the shot at Texas Stadium. Then after that, I was done. I didn't want to see any more of the show.
With the beautiful hole in the roof, because why? God wants to watch his favorite football team. Do you hear that?
But we've talked about the big men on Doomsday who are forgotten. And these guys, their careers were what they were. They were phenomenal. Some of them have the Super Bowl rings. Some of them don't. One guy that played on Doomsday in the back end of it that should be getting that call. He's been a finalist and a semifinalist a couple of times, but never got a call. And now he's up as a senior a couple of times. Is this guy, Covey Walls?
Yep.
Real name is Everson. Everybody knows him as Everson Walls, but Covey comes. So it is a different, and if you ask people, some people are going to say Cubby, some people are going to say Covey. And I'll tell you the story behind that. Comes from Grambling State, very close to my heart. Played for my coach, Coach Eddie Robinson. And my love for Grambling. I didn't get the chance to see Everson at Grambling. I saw him in Dallas, but amazing corner. Thurman's Thieves, part of that group. Yeah. Played all the way up till Jimmy, of course, chased him out, because he wanted to get younger. But he's a guy, you talk about it, tight cover skills, which is where the name comes from. When he was at Grambling, they had an equipment man who had a very thick Southern accent. So he used to call him Covey because he said he covered everything.
Covered everything. That's right.
But the way he spoke, it sounded like he was saying Cubby. So you hear people like call him Cubby, but it's really Covey. Yeah. But Everson Walls was that dude. He was the pre-Dion in Dallas before Dion. While he didn't have all the interceptions that Dion had, he was a better tackler. He was just as good in coverage. Yep. Wasn't as fast as Dion. Very good in zone. And if you hear them talk, when it comes to the Cowboys and the secondary and Doomsday, while the front did a lot of different things, the secondary was very basic. So those guys, if you were really good, you were going to shine in the secondary. If you were mediocre, you were going to struggle. It was just why we talk about certain guys that are beloved by Cowboys Nation. There was a guy that's beloved by Cowboy Nation, but he's mostly beloved because of his special teams and specialization prowess on defense, named Bill Bates.
Yep.
Bill Bates struggled in the flex because, one, he was very fast. He was a pretty mediocre speed safety. He would hit you if he got the chance, but for the most part, very intelligent too. But he just wasn't fast, so when he in the flex, he looked very average as a safety, for good reason. But you put him on special teams, he was able to do all that stuff. Everson Walls is a different breed. Everson Walls is a very special corner who could cover you and do a lot of the things we talked about. We talked about Cornell Green. Well, Everson Walls had a lot of that, just not as tall.
Well, Everson Walls did get a Super Bowl, however.
Unfortunately, not with Dallas.
Exactly. Yes. He got one with the Giants because Jimmy Johnson let him go after 1989 against the Phoenix Cardinals, and he was speaking to Cardinals players after that game, and Jimmy didn't like that, so that was why Everson left. But Everson Walls was he was just a phenomenal corner. He had 44 interceptions, which is second on the all-time career list. He was just phenomenal.
And up until Trayvon Diggs had the season record, season record for the Cowboys with 11.
Yep, which is what the record that Trayvon tied.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, I think there's only a few that had better seasons than that. Jerry Kramer, of course, with 14 in one season. And once again, he was doing that in pre-16 game seasons. He was doing that in the 14 game regular season. So Everson Walls is one of those guys that we talk about in the secondary. We've talked about a bunch of guys. And we got another Cowboys secondary player we're going to bring up, but he's a little bit further down the road. And the dark side of the star rears its head again, right? When it comes to the Hall of Fame, there seems to be a thing about Cowboys that they got to have this extra fight. Despite amazing credentials. We've gone through some amazing guys so far.
Drew Pearson was the last player from the all 70s team to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
And that just happened.
Yeah.
Basically. And that just happened.
Hello. Do you guys not understand how important Drew Pearson was? And, I mean, the Hail Mary catch that everybody calls a Staubach threw a horrible football, by the way.
You did.
It was Drew Pearson's hands that made that play. Thank you very much. But, yeah.
And the disrespect goes beyond the Hall of Fame, right? Where to start is that there's that dark cloud that seems to hang about how people talk about you.
Yep.
Nothing more, right, reflects that than the fact when you talk about the all-time great running backs, never in your top three do you see Emmitt Smith. How do you have the guy that leads the league, all-time leader in rushing, not mentioned in your top three running backs? Think about it.
I really don't get this. I really don't. But again,
well, Barry was better. Barry had less yardage. And guess what? A lot of the runs that Barry had, Emmitt had too. So,
yeah.
And they always talk about the line, right? Oh, the line, he wouldn't have done it without the line. And well, let's talk about the offensive line. Okay. His rookie year, he comes out, wins rookie of the year, doesn't rush for 1,000 yards. He gets 990. He was 10 yards shy.
10 yards
right?
shy.
All right. That line then goes on to be different next year. He wins the rushing title. Okay. In 91. 92. The line is different again. Wins another rushing title and a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Right. What happens? A couple of linemen leave. John Giesick leaves. All right. Kevin Gogan steps into place. Boom, 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 boom. What do? Repeat next year. He wins a rushing title again and a Super Bowl MVP.
Well, let's put all the Great Wall of Dallas guys' names out there. It was Eric Williams, Mark Tuinei, Mark Stepnoski, John Giesick, and Kevin Gogan. So it wasn't just those players. And there's one more guy who we're also going to talk about, who was a part of the Great Wall of Dallas. So it wasn't just 5 guys, right?
No, it was a whole bunch of them that individually they were not great.
No.
Okay. Individually they were not great. We don't talk about Mark Tuinei as a great tackle. He was a good tackle.
Yep.
Okay? We don't talk about Mark Stepnoski as a great center. He was a good center. A very undersized center. I think he was only 253 pounds or something like that.
Yep.
Okay. Which is compared to 300 across the board, which wasn't helped by Stepnoski being in the middle of it. All right. So another guy that's going to bring that weight up, we're going to talk about in a minute. But John Giesick was barely over 300.
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't a huge guy. Didn't have a great career outside of Dallas when he left. He had a solid career with the Raiders and a couple other teams. But guess what? The guy behind him, Kevin Gogan, was there for years, struggled at tackle. Okay, He was a tackle first. Struggled at tackle. They kicked him inside the guard when Giesick left. And he had a great year. So great that San Francisco and a couple of teams came running in to pay the man. Okay? Yep. So he went on to have all-pro seasons outside of Dallas. He was one of those rare guys that kicks inside the guard and has a better career after he struggled at tackle. But Eric Williams was a guy who had an amazing career, and to me would have been a potential Hall of Famer had he not had that car accident.
Yeah, his car accident destroyed what could have been another Hall of Fame career, and there's no doubt in my mind. If Eric Williams did not have that car accident, he would have had easily another 2 or 3 all-pro seasons, Pro Bowls, but that car accident just destroyed any hope of that, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And you talk about we talked about Reggie White and how unstoppable he was. That guy stopped him on several occasions.
Yep.
Okay? But before he got to the point where he could stop Reggie White, they had a lot of struggles as a line. You know, if we talk about the years when Emmett won that first rushing title, Troy Aikman got sacked 11 times by the Eagles in one game.
In one game.
Yep. So there were plenty of times where they struggled as an offensive line. You know, for two and a half quarters, he had 48, 50 yards. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, he breaks out for 75 yards. You know, or you can talk about times where he comes into the game on Monday Night Football, an open season against the Washington Redskins. And first play of the game, he goes for 5 and then 75. And if he didn't get dehydrated and leave the game, he probably goes for 200 yards that night against the team that went undefeated for 11 games before Dallas came back and beat him in Washington. But Emmitt Smith did a lot. Yes, there were some big holes for him with that line at times, but a lot of that was dirty yards. When there was no hole, he made yards on his own. There are a lot of broken tackles that people don't talk about, a lot of big runs that people don't talk about with Emmitt Smith. He deserves more respect than he gets. Like I said, your all-time leading rusher his line gets more credit than he does, and it's not fair at all. Okay, we talk about how great Marcus Allen was. We talk about how great Bo Jackson was in his short career. We talk about how great Terrell Davis was. And if anybody you want to talk about having a better line, when Terrell Davis was out, guys were still running for 100 and something yards without Terrell Davis, and those guys were journeymen.
Yeah.
You know, whoever talks about Mike Davis or any one of those other guys that came in Denver and ran for 100 and something yards when Terrell Davis was out. There were a lot of guys who benefited from really, really good lines. Emmitt Smith had a good line. But you want to know there's another thing that stands out about when Emmitt Smith wasn't in the game? They didn't usually win when he wasn't in games. Another thing, they didn't have any 100-yard rushers when Emmitt Smith was out for many, many years.
Yep.
Okay? So, but since we're on the subject of the Great Wall of Dallas and guys that should be in the Hall of Fame, well, if that line was great, we know Larry Allen's in. You know, other guys aren't going to get in. But guess what? This guy should be in. If you're going to talk about why Emmitt's in there, this guy is one of the reasons why Emmitt's in there. Okay? Nate Newton.
The kitchen. The kitchen.
Coming out of FAMU, an oversized guard, struggled. You know, he was in USFL, goes to Washington, was in camp at Washington, got cut because he was oversized. Dallas brings him in. Landry couldn't get anything done with him. But Jimmy found a way to say he's too good to keep cutting. And think about it. At one point, he was starting at tackle.
Yeah.
Right tackle.
That right tackle.
So Big Nate, you know, found his home at guard and was just unstoppable on the inside because he finally got a chance to put him in pass rush situations that fit him. You know, him on the outside versus Reggie White wasn't fair. No. But overall, when you talk about it, though, this was one of the key guys for many of those rushing years with Emmitt Smith. And there's you see him blocking for Blair Thomas, who never ran for 100 yards behind that line, but Emmitt was able to do it easily, right? You see, he was able to go out there and move bodies and pass block and shut people down and get out there on poles. 350 pounds. At one point, nearly 400 pounds.
Well, his stated maximum weight he ever got to was 411 pounds.
Right. And as he would say, in the offseason, I would get really fat. Right. Yep. So if it wasn't for the fact, you know, like we said, we just talked about Eric Williams, you know, the car accident kind of taking away his prime. Because he was in his prime when that happened.
Oh, absolutely.
Nate Newton deserves to be in there just as much as you talk about Larry Allen deserving to be in there. Like I said, Eric Williams would have been in there had that car accident not robbed him of the second part of his career.
Well, Larry Allen is the only member of the Great Wall who is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And
absolutely.
Okay, so everybody discounts what Emmitt Smith did because his great lines in front of him. Why is only one of them then in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
I've made that argument several times.
Yep.
So of the Great Wall group, Nate Newton, who's been up, he's been up there as a semifinalist. I think that's the closest he's gotten.
Yep.
But once again, all those guys that talked about Emmitt Smith and why Barry was better, and a lot of these guys are Hall of Fame voters. They talk about, well, Barry is better because of the line. Well, y'all keep telling Nate he's not good enough to be in the Hall of Fame. Make it make sense. So that's one of the biggest reasons when we talk about Nate Newton. We've seen the play, and it wasn't just John Madden with the telestrate edge. You saw it talking, here's Big Nate right there. Watch him. After he makes the block, he's going to hitch up his pants. Boom. Yeah. John Madden did highlight him. He was great for highlighting the offensive line. Yeah. But Nate Newton deserved it based on the career, the body of work, and what he meant to that offensive line and to the Dallas Cowboys. Even when he left in 98, when they moved on from him and they said, okay, at the end of your career.
Yeah.
That was a hard hole to fill. If it wasn't for Larry Allen, okay? And even when Larry Allen went to the left guard, the right guard was not settled. They had struggled at right guard, right? Because you didn't have Nate anymore, right? Yep. So there was a lot of reasons why you talk about some of those guys, but there's a guy that played with those guys who was equally important in a lot of ways, and people don't talk about it. He didn't have Antonio Gates numbers.
No.
But guess what? They won 3 Super Bowls with him and 0 without him. And he was one of the first free agents that they ever really signed, and he came from the Arizona Cardinals, and his name is Jay Novacek.
Jay Novacek.
Right? People forget how good Jay Novacek was. In the 90s, there were 2 premier tight ends, Brent Jones in San Francisco and Jay Novacek in Dallas. Okay, yep. And yeah, you had Ben Coates and all these guys. Those guys were later 90s. Early 90s, these were the 2 dudes. And they were out there, and they were hard matchups. You couldn't match him with a linebacker. He beat him. He was tough matchups for safeties, right? And Jay Novacek, wide receiver at Wyoming, goes to the NFL, becomes a tight end. Not the greatest blocker, more of a position blocker, getting away. But with Emmitt, that's all you had to do. But you see right there the ability to always a crucial catch. And if you ask Troy Aikman, besides Michael Irvin, who was important for you, he'll tell you Jay Novacek in a heartbeat. He kept the chains moving on 3rd down. In the red zone, he found ways to get open. And he always found he always got a big catch down the field. All right. So, and in his last game, which was the Super Bowl versus Pittsburgh, got another touchdown. All right.
Yes, he did.
What a bad back. Remember, he retired because of a bad back.
That's right. He had a herniated disc in his back, and he was in that Super Bowl with that disc. And that man played in pain. He was in pain. And that was for longer than just that 95 season as well.
He went through it for a couple of years. That
injury had actually happened in the 93 season. Exactly. Yeah. So the 93 season when they win the Super Bowl, he was hurt. And again in the 95 Super Bowl, he comes up with a touchdown.
It's the same injury that took out Charles Haley as well. So they retired together, although Haley did come back for a short stint again with San Francisco. Yeah. They retired together with the same injury. Yeah. And, once again, you're looking at the highlights. The guy just, they never replaced him. All right. They could not replace him. They tried. They tried drafting people. They tried signing people. They could not replace Jay Novacek. So this has got to be one of those things when you talk about players who, once again, you look at the star and you don't give them the respect that they deserve. This ain't about numbers. This is about a guy that was out there putting up good numbers, but was crucial in the offense, being productive all the way from week 1 to the Super Bowl.
Well,
and that's Jay Novacek.
Here's a guy that I would argue is in this year. Sterling Sharp only played 7 seasons. Had to retire, right?
Yeah.
Terrell Davis played 7 seasons. He had to retire. He's in. why isn't Jay Novacek looked at like that? Because
and he played longer because he had the time in Arizona as well.
Right. Yeah, he had a longer career. I don't. Again, that goes to the truth against the star. Jay Novacek was never given the bright lights that Jason Witten was given, but Jay Novacek, as you said, was Troy Aikman's safety valve.
Absolutely.
So, and okay, let's go to Mr. Woodson. You know how many years I have begged the NFL to get this man into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
We have gone on some long tirades together, and justifiably so. The way they have played with him for the last 5 seasons with this Hall of Fame business, snubbing him. The fact that Jimmy Johnson in his acceptance speech says, if I'm up here, Darren Woodson should be up here next year. And they put every safety. Think about it. They put every safety in but him. John Lynch went in. If I'm going to look at, I'm starting a defense and I'm looking at John Lynch and Darren Woodson, I'm taking Darren Woodson. All right. Steve Atwater, Darren Woodson, I'm taking Darren Woodson. Leroy Butler, Darren Woodson. None of these guys were Darren Woodson. Okay. Nope. And everybody goes, well, these guys are better. No, they were not. Okay. Darren Woodson was a guy that played strong safety, free safety. And guess what? When you wanted to play nickel defense, he went down and played nickel or even linebacker and dime.
That's right.
All right. He did so much on defense. We always talk about now the Buda Bakers, the Tyrann Matthews, how they could do all this stuff. He matched up against wide receivers. What safety ever matched up in the slot versus Jerry Rice that it was successful? I'll tell you what, his name was Darren Woodson.
Darren Woodson would go up against the best wide receiver that I have ever seen play was Jerry Rice. I don't care if anybody disagrees with me. I think you're crazy if you disagree with me, but Jerry Rice was the best wide receiver I ever saw play. Darren Woodson shut that guy down. He would shut him down.
Between him and Pup.
As a safety.
Him and Pup on the outside.
Yeah.
You know, Kevin Smith, before he tore his Achilles. I'll put that in the same one. Before he tore the Achilles. He would have had. He was another one that would have had an excellent career if it wasn't for the injury, but because he was never the same after he tore his Achilles. But when he and Pup were on the field together against San Francisco, Jerry Rice was not burning everybody like he was before. It just didn't happen, you know. And for you can talk about the stuff that Darren Woodson did. He was effective in the coverage. He was effective as a run stopper. He did it all.
Yeah.
And even with him getting older, when Parcells got there, if it wasn't for the injury, he would still have been out there with Roy Williams. He would have made Roy Williams a better safety because Roy Williams looked phenomenal when he was next to Darren Woodson. It was when he was playing with somebody else is when Roy Williams got exposed a lot. But
absolutely.
But when you talk about Darren Woodson's career and the stuff that he did, why is he still waiting? You cannot say it's because there were better safeties. They were not better. Stop. They are lying to themselves when they say that. You could put him on the field with a lot of do. The only safety that I would put out there and say he was better than Darren Woodson would have been Ronnie Lott.
Bingo.
Because Ronnie Lott did exactly what Darren Woodson did.
Yep.
All right. So it was just as vicious and good. It was even better catching the football. So other than that, there's not so many. And I see what you're saying about Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor was a true safety, but Sean Taylor did not do what Darren Woodson did. Right? Nobody did it. Nobody went down in the slot and played safety versus a wide receiver. Now you got guys that do it because of the hybrid defenses everybody is running, but nobody does everything that Darren Woodson did. You're trying to define Darren Woodson's in this day and age of football because he fits what these hybrid defenses do, and they can't seem to consistently do it. Oh, we thought Minka Fitzpatrick was. He is not Darren Woodson. Okay,
no.
There are so many guys that you're trying to fill a gap of a mold of a guy, and you can't even put the guy in the Hall of Fame because of a uniform. Because there's no other way you can just say that he is not a Hall of Famer. Looking at his career, looking at his numbers, right, the tackle numbers, he's the all-time leader in tackles for the defense, for the defensive side of the ball in Cowboys history. A safety named Darren Woodson. And you think of the linebackers that came through here, the Nortons, the Del Rios, the Joneses, the Dat Wins, the Dexter Coakleys. These guys were tackle machines.
His 864 career tackles, 702 of them were all by himself. 702 tackles by Darren Woodson. You show me another safety, like you mentioned, John Lynch and all these. No, I'm sorry. They don't have those numbers.
They don't.
They do not have those numbers.
It's baffling how he is still waiting. Like I said, for 5 years, I've been ranting to the Hall of Fame about it. I don't know what the heck their requirements are. I think it's at this point it's almost comical. It's a joke, you know.
Well, he's been waiting since 2008.
He's been waiting since 2008, yes, but he's been close for the past 5 years. He's been a finalist for the past 5 years and has gotten passed over every time.
That's right.
And I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. And I've heard that when they had other guys they had to put in first. The guys they put in first had no business being there.
No, not compared to Darren Woodson and the numbers that the man put up. This guy in those Super Bowl wins was phenomenal.
I'll tell you a Cowboy that's gone in before him, and he shouldn't be in there before him. And he's not even a defensive player; he's an offensive player, you know. And that would have been, of course, Owens. As much as I love T.O., and I still waver on T.O. being a Hall of Famer at all. But more or less,
I do. I completely agree with you.
But nevertheless, being in over Darren Woodson, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
Polamalu is close, but they're different safeties. Polamalu didn't, once again, he played in the box, yes.
That's
he
right.
was a strong safety. He could play free safety, but he didn't do what Darren. He didn't match up with slot receivers like Darren. Darren was that one dude that could do it. And you talk about a guy that played linebacker in college, that did all of this stuff, right? And when they played against the run and shoot teams, Darren Woodson played linebacker.
Darren Woodson is a Cowboy because of Dave Campo, who was the defensive back coach.
Yes.
And when he saw him playing linebacker, he goes, "No, this guy can play. This guy is going to be a great safety." So that's why he was taken 37th overall. They listened to him. Unlike the Dan Quinn picks that we've gone through recently, this defensive coach made a very good call when they drafted Darren Woodson.
Indeed. But once again, you know, we've gone through a whole bunch of names, and I'm pretty sure you can find some more. But it's that dark side. You know, we talk about the reverence the star brings. You're a Cowboy, you looked at certain ways, good, and of course the bad. And it's the bad. The way the people look at the star in the bad way is hurting these guys because there's no way you look at what they've done and say they're not Hall of Fame. You look at it and say, well, they played for the Dallas Cowboys. There's got to be somebody else. Then there's no other way.
Yep. And like I mentioned earlier, L.C. Greenwood belongs in the Hall of Fame from the Steel Curtain. Jerry Smith, who was a tight end at the late end of the 60s and the middle part of the 70s for the Redskins, should be a tight end in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. Oh, but the man was gay, so that excludes it. Are you kidding me? I could care less that Jerry Smith was a homosexual. Vince Lombardi's brother was a gay man. Vince Lombardi coached Jerry Smith his last season, right?
Yep.
And who did he count on his offense? Jerry Smith. Okay, so it's good enough for Lombardi to trust. But the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Well, no, we can't have that. It's just totally ridiculous. Kenny Anderson? How do you not put in Kenny Anderson to the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
That's baffling to me. And to me, I don't understand that. I'm still in if we're going to get off of Cowboys for a second, this night we talked about the Steelers having all these guys. The 80s Niners are still missing some guys. How about a guy that won Super Bowls with them in the 80s and in the 90s named John Taylor?
John Taylor.
How do you put both Steeler receivers in? You haven't put John Taylor in there with Jerry Rice.
John
doesn't
Taylor
make any sense.
He was the wide receiver too. He was always open. He was
Playing them Super Bowl highlights of John Taylor scoring just as well as Jerry Rice.
Yep.
He was hard to stop. He was not just the dude. He was, I know people talk about Michael Irvin. They go, yeah, but yes, he did it with and without Alvin Harper. That's true. Okay? Alvin Harper's career was not the same after he left Dallas. That is true. John Taylor played in San Francisco his whole career and was good throughout.
Yep.
He was darn good.
Yep.
Like, how do you not put him in? Because he was a major part of why they won.
It's beyond me. It's beyond me. But again, the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year has the minimum guys going in for. How Darren Woodson did not get in with only these 4 players going in is beyond me. It is totally ridiculous.
I'm still trying to figure out how they put in Darrelle Revis before Darren Woodson. And I like Darrelle Revis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How did he get in before Darren Woodson? I'm still beyond it.
No, it's totally beyond our I mean, like I said, I've been a fan of the Cowboys since 1969. I saw Everson Walls and Jethro Pugh, Ed Jones, Harvey Martin, live and in living color.
Yes.
I used to go to Dallas for the Thanksgiving Day games. And those are the men that I met. And it was like, and then you'd watch them play. And you watch these guys destroy offensive lines.
Mm-hmm.
Everson Walls with the pass interceptions and all that other jazz. Yeah, Darren Woodson may have only had 23 interceptions, but man, that guy would go out and destroy running backs, the slot receivers, tight ends. He would destroy those guys. That's all part and parcel of what the game is supposed to be.
Yeah. I saw this name, and I like Tony Romo. I believe Tony Romo eventually should end up in the Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, though.
But he's not a Pro Football Hall of Famer.
No.
I
just like Danny White. Danny White's in the ring, doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame.
Doesn't belong in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Do you want to tell the story of the Danny White era as a quarterback and the Gil Brandt miss? Do you want to tell that one?
I'll let you tell that one.
Well, all right. 1978, the Rose Bowl. Warren Moon leads the University of Washington Huskies out against that school up north. And for you people who don't understand who that school is, it's the Michigan Wolverines. He beats the Wolverines in the Rose Bowl. Gil Brandt was the chief scout of the Cowboys at the time. But then a man that you know tells the story of him pounding the table to draft Warren Moon. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Oh, no. I just when you told me that, I was no, because of course I got to see Warren Moon his first 5 years up here in the CFL live and in person up here in Edmonton, Canada. And when Warren Moon threw that football, it was an amazing thing to watch. And you just think of Warren Moon with the star. Oh, Lord, how many more Super Bowls would we have won?
Yeah, I just laugh because they could have had Warren Moon. That would, and the pass on him was interesting, right? And you think about it, at that time, we know why Warren Moon was passed on. Currently, black quarterbacks weren't smart enough to be quarterback, so they didn't believe he was good enough to play quarterback in the NFL. They thought he'd be moved to another position.
Yep.
Well, he showed them in the CFL, and they went chasing after him, didn't they? Right. So, in You look at it, less than 10 years later, they finally pull the trigger on a black quarterback, Reggie Collier. And you had the chance to get a Hall of Famer, and you took the guy that had a very nothing career in the NFL.
Quincy Carter, the other quarterbacks that the black quarterbacks they've had before they got
Alex Wright.
Alex Wright. Before they finally found Dak Prescott.
Anthony Wright. Alex Wright was the receiver.
Yeah,
Anthony Wright. And then you did get Dak later on. But and I don't feel bad about Quincy. And people really kick Quincy around, talk about, he was this, he was that. Quincy Carter was a project that we overdrafted. He was a project quarterback, right? Yeah. He had issues throwing the football at Georgia. Okay, he was more of an option quarterback at Georgia.
All
right, so he was a project. And the fact that he was able to go out there, and they gave up on him real fast, right? Remember, he goes to the first season, he has his struggles, he injures his thumb, he comes back. They go 5-11. Next year, they bring in Chad Hutchinson, right? And Chad Hutchinson's supposed to be the next big deal. And he goes out there and he has his struggles. They bring in Hutchinson and they go 5-11. And then they come back the next year and it's another QB battle all over again. And it's like, okay, we've done this 3 years in a row. So finally Parcells comes in, gives him a little structure, gives him some talent around him. And he wins 10 games and takes them to the playoffs. Almost beat Philadelphia, the unbeatable Eagles in the East at that time.
Yep.
But he was never Parcells was never fully convinced. And he had a mental issue that caused him to self-medicate. And had we had the mental health personnel in place like we do now, maybe he would have gotten the help he needed and had a better career. But because he had that issue and he kept popping positive, Parcells cut him. And for what? For an aging 40-year-old Vinny Testaverde. He got rid of Hutchinson. Chad Hutchinson wasn't even around for that point. He had Tony Romo, and then he had Drew Henson, which was a waste. So there was so much bad when you got rid of Quincy. That 6-10 season might have been better if they actually had Quincy. But you think about it, how bad Testaverde was, how bad Drew Henson was. It might have been better had they actually kept Quincy.
Carter.
Quincy Carter's career hinged on Dallas. Once it went bad in Dallas, he was done.
Yeah.
So, he's turned his life around, and congrats to Quincy for that. But, I think his issues started and ended in Dallas. Once Dallas went bad for him, it was just over because nobody was ever going to take him as seriously as Dallas did at first. So,
no. And again, that was those decisions in that time frame still baffle my mind.
Doesn't baffle me. I understand Parcells though too well.
Yeah, well, that
I understand.
See, I disagreed with Jerry even hiring the guy. I did not want a 3-4 defense. No. That is not how the Cowboys play defense. I'm sorry. Goodbye, Bill. Go somewhere else.
I know why he did it, and it actually helped him out. Believe it or not, it helped him out. Unfortunately, it changed a lot of guys in the draft room. You had the Larry Lacewells and the Brian Broaduses that were all chased off when Parcells and his crew came in there. But at the end of the day, it gave Jerry a little more insight in what to look for. Because remember, the drafts before Parcells got there kind of were, right? We traded away a lot of first-round picks for people like Joey Galloway, but the mid-round picks, the second and third round, we were taking guys, that we were lucky to keep them on the field. The Derrick Rosses of the world. Think of Derrick Ross, right? A guy who couldn't stay out of trouble. Why did we get him in the third? Because he was always in trouble.
Always in trouble.
So those are the guys you always worry about. And
again, I always feel bad for Greg Ellis, who was a great defensive player for the Cowboys. But
Yes, he was.
He always gets tagged with, but we should have taken Randy Moss.
Yeah, and they should have. And they taken Randy Moss. Guess what? They would be in the 6th and the 7th ring because he would have done. He would have done what they would have. He would have replaced what they would have lost in both Harper and Novacek, because now Michael could have focused on being.
But Michael ended up going down that next season.
Yeah.
So Randy Moss would have been number 1 very quickly in Dallas, and I don't care who was throwing the ball, as long as you got it near Randy Moss, he was catching it. Hello.
But look at what he did for the offense in Minnesota. The offense in Minnesota was good. He made it great, right? He allowed Carter to catch a lot more balls. He allowed Robert Smith to get a lot of openings to run the ball and catch balls out of the backfield. He opened things up for Jake Reed in the middle of the field. I forget the tight end that they had at the time. Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
But he opened it up for those guys. Wasn't it the father of the defensive end in Jordan, Steve Jordan?
Oh, okay, Jordan. Okay, yep.
Yeah, so I think that was at the tail end of his career.
Yeah.
But him and Tice together. But nevertheless, he helped those guys out. Could you imagine Irvin and Moss, right? Mm-hmm. And you could have had David LaFleur at tight end at that point, or anybody you wanted at tight end at that point. But you would have had those guys with Aikman throwing the ball, Emmett in the backfield. It would have been a lot more explosive than what we saw with Rocket. It would have been a lot more explosive than what we saw with Rocket.
Yeah.
So, playing with the Billy Davises and the Kevin Williamses, and they were still able to do stuff, didn't matter compared to what you would have had with, Randy Moss out there. Yes, you could have got another defensive end. It wouldn't have been Greg Ellis, who was a heck of a defensive player. Not an elite pass rusher, but a darn good one.
Well, he was DeMarcus Lawrence before DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yes.
Because, again, I've always said I love DeMarcus Lawrence because he understands how to stop the damn running game. Hello. Yes. That is part of being an edge player in the NFL. That is part and parcel of what you need to be able to do. You want to talk about a great edge player? Ed Too Tall Jones was a great edge player because he would stop the running game.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's things that people just don't understand because they all want to see the quarterback going down. Well, guess what? Sometimes putting pressure on a quarterback leads to a better result than your sack does.
Well, listen, you could make a whole Marvel what if episode if Dallas would have took Moss over him. What would have happened? I guarantee you what wouldn't have happened wouldn't have been Michael Irvin laying on the turf at Veterans Stadium. That would not have happened.
That's what I was about to say. You would not have seen Michael Irvin get injured the way he got injured in Philadelphia at Veterans Stadium, which is still a nightmare scenario for both of us that we both saw that. And of course, I
also saw the disrespect to the Eagles fans after that.
Yeah.
I won't even mention what they did all season after that. Well, one individual did all season.
Yeah.
But, you can say they're all culpable because they cheered it. But nevertheless, it would be great if people would just look at the merit of the ball players we've mentioned tonight and say, do they belong in? Do they not belong in? Instead of looking at them and saying,
and again,
Cowboys.
It's not just the Dallas Cowboys that we mentioned. John Taylor of the Niners belongs in there.
Yes.
L.T. Greenwood of the Steelers belong in there. Kenny Anderson of the Bengals belongs in there. And Jerry Smith of the Redskins all belong in the Pro Football Hall of Fame because of their contributions on that field. That is the bottom line of this. The contributions you make on a football field for your team, that is what a Pro Football Hall of Famer is all about.
I'm going to add one more name to that list.
Okay.
Ricky Waters.
Okay. Yeah.
We are not talking about Ricky Waters as a Hall of Famer at this point? Looking at what Ricky Waters did in the NFL, I mean, come on. I mean, first of all, San Francisco doesn't go to three straight championship games without Ricky Waters. Okay. They don't win a Super Bowl without Ricky Waters. The Eagles in the mid-'90s don't start to win games and become relevant without Ricky Waters. Because guess what? San Francisco was never the same after he left. I mean, the man was a phenomenal runner, overcame the broken leg his rookie year and went on to do amazing things on the football field for 10-plus seasons. So,
yep. And Ricky Waters also is the man who led the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame to their last national title in 1980. I wasn't
going to talk about Notre Dame. I was going to leave it just on the NFL stuff because
don't want
nobody accuse it of being homerism, but nevertheless, if you look at the man's career,
that's right.
Okay, one of the reasons why Steve Young is holding that trophy, going, "Woo, take that monkey off my back," is because Ricky Waters was back there running the ball for him. And then he was able to dump it in the flat to Ricky Waters when he didn't have time or anyone open. Right. So let's be realistic. Ricky Waters deserves to be in there. And just like his predecessor, Roger Craig deserves to be in there. Why these two guys are not in there, but you put Thurman Thomas in there doesn't make any sense to me. The 1,000 rushing receiver, the first one, Roger Craig. Come on, guys. He did it multiple seasons. Stop.
And this is what bothers me about Terrell Davis going in. Ricky Waters, Roger Craig, neither one of them. How? How does that happen? It's beyond the common sense of most football men who understand how this game is actually played, that it takes 11 guys all doing their jobs to win a Super Bowl. And yes, kids, even if the Dak Prescott-led Cowboys win a Super Bowl, I'm not giving Dak Prescott credit as the quarterback of the Cowboys. He's just a player. Roger Staubach was just a player. Troy Aikman was just a player. They are not getting all my credit.
No.
They don't deserve that. And this is how I feel about these college quarterbacks now. I think all of them need a spring season of football under the center. They got to learn how to play in the NFL. Don't start them right away, and I just don't like it. Jaden Daniels, yes, he was an exception, but again,
you got to know when to start a guy and when not to. That's called planning and proper development. The NFL has a development problem now.
Oh, huge.
Everything's microwave popcorn. If you don't have instant success, it's instantly questioned.
Well,
the reason why the young quarterback that we just let go isn't here anymore is because he's a victim of that.
Yep.
Okay. And people talked about him in San Francisco. Oh, he didn't play well. He didn't miss. He didn't that. Trey Lance was brought in there. They knew he was a project. They said they had a plan. Okay. But when you hear John Lynch tell it, he was QB3. QB3 doesn't get any snaps in practice. He's never going to develop. Okay.
QB3, by the way, is the guy that they moved up in that draft to take.
Yes.
They moved up in that draft to take him, third overall.
Yes.
Third overall pick. And you cost yourself another first-round draft pick. Oh, but he was supposed to be QB3? Guess what? QB3 in Cleveland right now was a fifth-round pick.
Yeah. Well, right now he's QB4.
QB4.
Yeah.
QB3 was actually a third-round pick.
The other guys are getting first-team reps sprinkled around. He isn't.
Yep. But
so he's QB4.
But again, I mean, it's the nonsense that these Cowboys players don't get even mentioned by people. You tell me who else has mentioned Cornell Green besides the two of us?
Very few. Every once in a while, I hear somebody sprinkle Cornell's name around, and it should be talked about more.
Because Cornell Green played a great game in Super Bowl VI, by the way.
He did.
When they shut down the Larry Zonka, Par Warfield, Freddie Mercury Morris, led Dolphins, who only scored 3 points against that doomsday defense. And you know why they won? You know why they won that season? That next season? Because the Cowboys committed too many damn penalties against the Washington Redskins. And as soon as the Redskins won that game, the Miami Dolphins, all of them have said this. They looked at each other and said, we just won the Super Bowl because we don't have to face doomsday. They knew that if they had to face doomsday again, they were going down.
Well, what was doomsday built to stop?
The run.
There you go. It was built to stop the run, especially when Jim Brown was running around, right?
Well,
So
that's why the flex defense was created by Tom Landry, was to stop Jim Brown because he was going to be an opponent that year. And guess what? Jim Brown did not have a 100-yard day against the Cowboys.
No.
Oh.
No, and that's why they were successful against Miami, because you had to stop Miami's running game. If you couldn't stop Zonka, Morris, and Kick, you weren't stopping them with offense, and they were able to do it.
Yep. So, it has been a pleasure having you on this evening, Jeff.
Thank you.
On my debut episode of the Blue and Silver Breakdown. I want everybody to understand that I'm going to be coming on Tuesday nights every week of this season. And if you heard the intro, there's going to be no BS here. I'm not interested in the personal lives of the Dallas Cowboys players. I'm not interested in talking about Steven and Jerry. I don't care about that. I care about the football field, the guys who are going to be on the field for the Cowboys, the coaching staff. That's what I care about. That's my take on the Dallas Cowboys. And I want everybody to have a great night. And you all take care.